Everyone, and welcome. My name is Rick Noguchi. I am the president and CEO of California Humanities. And we're proud to host the Collective Joy Project, which is a public dialogue series designed to explore how story, ritual, and culture can help us move through grief toward collective joy and future building. At a time when so much feels uncertain, we believe the humanities offer us tools to reflect, connect, and imagine new possibilities together. So thank you for being here, for showing up in this space, and for helping us center joy as a practice, as a powerful practice. Let me say that again. Thank you for helping us center joy as a powerful practice. Now I'll turn it over to our senior program officer, Mariana Moscoso, who will guide today's conversation. Over to you, Mariana.
Thanks so much, Rick, and thank you to everyone that's here today. Today is super special because we are live at Yisrael Family Farms, which is definitely different from our usual practice. I'm so thrilled to welcome our guest, Chanowk Yisrael, for today's session, Land Back, Joy Forward, Part 2, the Rematriation, Reciprocity, and Future World Building. Chanowk is a visionary land steward, educator, and community leader. He is the co-founder of Yisrael Family Farm in Sacramento. Chanowk has transformed a half-acre urban lot into a vibrant hub for food justice, ecological stewardship, and neighborhood healing. Through the principles of regenerative farming, he invites us all to reconnect with land, culture, and self. Chanowk, we're so honored to have you here.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Mariana. It's a blessing to be here. Since we're talking about joy, and for me, joy is found in the soil. It's in the quiet rhythm of planting, harvesting, and sharing. And, it's over this last 17 years, it's been in the watching of my children to learn the names of plants. It's been in watching them pick up safety knives when they're young, 1 and 2 years old, 5, 6 years old, and now seeing them all in their own ways, being able to get around the kitchen, all those different types of things. It's also the sunrise when we're walking at the land here. I know they can't see everything, but in my background is a fig tree. I'm looking out over some onions and basil, and different types of audio. I'm good? Okay, all right. So, it's looking out over those different types of things. I got peppers, I got eggplants and all those things. Those things are joyful for me because it's now that harvest season. And not only that, but when we talk about rematriation, which is we're also talking about the restoring of balance. And, we're talking about this idea of masculine and feminine, and we're actually talking about balance between them. Returning to center, which is intuition, joy, rhythm, regeneration. But it's also about this masculine showing up in divine authority, not in a domineering way or not in domination, but more like stewardship. And so at Yisrael Farms here, we're growing families, we're growing futures, and we're also, building what comes after Babylon. And that starts with remembering who we are.
Thanks so much, Chanowk. So usually we do begin with a reflection on joy, and I feel like you already gave us that, but let's open it up to folks in the space. So what's something that's bringing you joy lately? And go ahead and enter that into the chat. And I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit deeper, Chanowk. Is there something that's happened recently that's bringing you joy?
I think that that one thing that's really brought me joy is we just concluded our season for our Liberated Harvest CSA. And what we did is we had a customer appreciation day. And so we brought some of the people, you know, when we sat out here, and it was like a return to the old days. We made pizzas, we talked about the farm, they toured, but also it was a feedback session where they were able to tell us things they liked, things that we could work on better. And it really was this whole sense of community around the idea of food. And I think that's something that brought me a lot of joy. Judith was there. One of our daughters was able to be there because now she's in culinary school after picking up, you know, those safety knives. And so she cooked all the food. She made the dough from scratch while we were sitting there. And so it was just a wonderful culmination of the last 17 years of what we've been doing, in addition to new people that are now part of our family.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I can hear the joy in just the way you explained or spoke about the experience. I really appreciate that reflection. So as I mentioned earlier, today's conversation does center land back.
Sure.
This is our second conversation about this. And we see this as a living call to return of ancestral relationships and responsibilities. And so we're exploring rematriation as a return, not just a return of land, but the return of connection to seasonal rhythms and intergenerational care. And Chanowk, I was curious if you could share what rematriation means in your practice and what role joy plays in that vision.
Okay, well, I think I'll start with a small story about kind of how we got here, because you know, right behind you where you're sitting is like the first like 30 square feet where we started growing about 17 years ago. And so what we did is we had to actually reclaim our connection to nature. Most people are not connected to nature, even though we go outside, and I've seen even people hug trees and things of that nature. But in reality, we're really not connected to it. And when we do connect with nature, it's this idea of control, as opposed to us like allowing nature to be there and then we come in as a participant. So when I first started growing food, it was, oh, I'm going to get this land. I had a rototiller, you know, I rototilled the soil, and, you know, all those different types of things that you would learn how to do, you know, doing land. But over time, I started to realize that that's not the way to do it. So then we started to really think about that. And then, of course, I tried to start my first garden in the summer. Right. So you can only think about the challenges there were for keeping it watered. And of course, everything died the first time. So if you think about that, it's reclaiming this rightful place in how we relate to land, time, and then also each other. Because the year starts in January. But that's not when nature says that the year starts. It starts in spring. So, you know, reclaiming all of those things, we almost have to really change the calendar.
I agree. And I don't want to get like so deep into how do we need to change the calendar, because I'm right there with you as a practitioner of like Mayan timekeeping. But definitely it is a calendar that is not in balance with our natural rhythms. And it's actually a calendar of war and taxation.
Exactly.
But that I feel like is a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation, and we only have 30 minutes, so we can only give like an overview. But for those people taking notes, you might have to do some research.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about the beginning of Yisrael Farms, and I wanted you to go into a little bit deeper of like, what are the roots and the values that nourished this vision?
Okay. So it's funny. We just had some interns from UC Davis, and they were like, when you were thinking about designing your farm, what were you thinking about? And I just said, the end of the world, right? But in reality, just kind of backing off a little bit, was like, what would it look like to start to practice sovereignty in the city?
That's right.
Right? Everything is provided for us. We rarely produce anything for ourselves. So it starts here. You have to reclaim your mind and reclaim this idea that you can do this, because most people, when I say, hey, grow some food, they're like, oh, I can't grow food. I got a brown thumb, or I can't everything. I kill everything, and all these other different things. So it's really reclaiming our minds, right? And starting inside your head first. And then understanding that whatever you plant there and the realities that you believe there will then come out in how you act, right? And so it was the first thing that we had to do is return that. So then what did we do? At the time, we were on this homeschool. So we basically just turned the farm into a living classroom. And one of the biggest lessons of the living classroom was we can work together, we can harvest food together, we can think about what we're going to eat and get recipes together, we can cook together, and then ultimately when it's all said and done, we can eat together. And if you do that cycle over and over again, you will start to reclaim that connection to nature that we all need.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying about reclaiming and having sovereignty, right? Self-sovereignty within these systems of destruction, of ecological destruction, destruction of the self and of community that continues to separate and isolate us. And I really resonate with the idea of like having to change our minds to align with what the earth is asking us, what the seasons are asking from us. And I wonder, and I speak a little bit selfishly, like, what would you tell someone who has done it before and has backed away and wants to restart? Like, beyond, what lessons from nature do you think we could take to return, even when we've returned and pulled back and maybe returned again?
Well, you have to understand that returning and pulling back and returning and pulling back is actually a natural concept, because when you think about spring, it's like there's this explosion of energy that comes from what? The roots of the plants, especially trees and things like that, that's been there stored for wintertime. But then when you come to now, as we see, you wake up in the morning, it's cool in the morning. You might not be able to sleep with the windows anymore. So this backing up is happening right now as we get ready to go into the winter season. And then of course our chickens are resting. So we have a, chicken subscription where you can get eggs, not chickens, but you can get eggs. But we've had to tell our customers, hey, we're letting our chickens rest. According to nature, we're not putting lights on them. So we're sorry, but your subscription is going to taper off. So I think that I would tell somebody failure is a part of it. If they're backing off because of, oh, I tried it and I did all that and it didn't work. Well, are you sure that it didn't work? Or maybe it was the intention or the way that you were approaching it that didn't work. Because when I first started, I was in IT, so I was a very mechanical mind. So I figured I could just take a plant, put it in the ground, water it, and it's going to grow because everything around me was growing. But as all the plants that I was touching and planting were dying, all of the things that were already here in the natural environment were thriving. So then I realized I had to change something going on with me before I could get the same result that nature had been getting for however much time.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it speaks to my next question for you, which, what does food sovereignty mean to you? And I think you've spoken a little bit about it already, but why is it important for our communities, Black and Brown communities, specifically, maybe bring in the neighborhood that we live in?
Well, it's important because when my parents came from the South to, I guess you could call us the North, but out of the oppressiveness of the South, they were leaving behind all of those things, the lynchings and all that, but they were bringing with them their love for plants. My dad used to grow a garden when I was young. I didn't want to have anything to do with it at the time. And then also this idea of land as being sacred, food as medicine, community as technology. As opposed to phones and computers. It's those things that we've lost. And so when we were coming out here, we didn't only just leave the land, but we also left the culture and those connections. And so it's by reclaiming, like I said, those things, which is actually what a revolution is. A revolution is a drastic change in people's thinking. And when people think different, they act different. So it's really about those things. And that's where you start this whole idea of resistance.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about specifically the neighborhood that we live in?
Sure.
And
South
how...
Oak Park? Okay. Well, I mean, depending on where you go right now, I live in South Oak Park. We're like, ooh. It's like it's one of those stories. But the idea is that it's red line community. It was a red line community. Oak Park, of course, the first place in Sacramento that was somewhere. But as what you'll see is that it's red line. So as a result, they call it a food desert. But it's not really a food desert because it's not natural. It was actually designed to be that way through redlining and all those different types of things. Because my dad came here in the 50s, when he was looking around for houses to buy and where to live, there were certain places that you couldn't live. Like, you couldn't live across the Stockton Boulevard there. You couldn't live in Southland Park. You couldn't live in Greenhaven. There was all those places. So as you think about this area, corner stores, fast food restaurants, and then a bunch of empty lots with a whole bunch of junk in them. They call them low impact communities, where there's not a lot of care, where people are wanting to take care of the community. And so as a result, this type of work that we're doing here, reconnecting people back to food, reconnecting back to land, and reconnecting back to that sovereignty is what actually will rebuild the community. Because right now, if I go to the store right up the street, all I'm going to find is hot Takis, cigarettes, beer. I'm not going to get any fresh fruits and vegetables. And those are the indicators that say, so if I type in 95820 zip code, it's going to tell me how long am I going to live, right? How much money I'm going to make, all these different things based on the environmental concerns of the community.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about in this, specifically in land sovereignty and food sovereignty.
Sure.
About how important it is for us to grow our own food and reconnect to land. And I wanted to ask you, how has tending to the land become a practice of joy for you, and how have you seen that joy show up in community?
Sure. So I think 2011 is when Judith and we first quit our jobs, 2011, 2012, to do this full time. And of course, we're having all the success in our own backyard, and the children this, and we're homeschooling, a living classroom. We're doing all this, but we're like, okay, we want to share this first starting with the community, and then everywhere else if possible. So we ended up working together with I think it was the Healthy Food for All Coalition, and we were able to get some resources to start building gardens, because it's like, okay, a lot of people don't know where to start. How can we help? And so this garden bill became this beautiful thing, because we would go to somebody's house, we would talk.
I'm a recipient.
Right. We would go to somebody's house, look around. Okay, you got the place to put a garden, and then we'd invite people to come and help, and we'd eat together.
Yeah.
So basically the same thing that we used to do with a family. And in 6 hours, you have a garden, you have all these people that are connected, because if you're going to come out on a Saturday and help somebody for free with a garden, then obviously most of these people are going to have something in common. You're going to eat a meal together, and then you're going to talk about the future. So that's one of the ways that, we were able to start, leveraging the community as technology. And then the next part was, how are you going to cook the food? Because once you have food, that's one thing. But if you don't know how to take eggplant and all these different things, then, that's a whole different thing. And so that's where Judith comes in, and she's an alchemist.
Yes.
And culinarian. So she can take, I come in with this 10, 15 pounds of this and this and that. And then the next thing you know, there's this wonderful meal, and that people love, and people still talk about to this day. So those are some of the things. And then last but not least is the youth.
Yeah.
Trying to plant these seeds in the young people as young as possible, so that they can grow.
Yeah, I love this speaking about, like, it's not just about tending to the land and making the food. We then need the alchemists to transform the food into nourishment,
right,
so that energy is like constantly moving.
right.
It makes me think about the rhythm and rituals that
Sure.
we carry in our families and communities. And I was wondering if there are any rhythms or rituals that have helped you and your family and community to stay rooted through grief and challenge.
Well, I know for a fact that, as a family, we keep the Sabbath. So, one day a week is set apart
Mm-hmm.
and there's no negotiation. We will rest. And resting means, so for example, the other 6 days of the week, we spend a lot of time manipulating the world. We want it to look a certain way and we want things from it. So we try to do that. We spend money, we do this, we dig up this, we go to work, we come home, we go out, we buy things from the store, all these different things in trying to get something from nature. So when we rest, we stop. We're not buying anything. We're trying to stay as much as possible off the screens, but sometimes it's so hard, We're trying to get off of that stuff. And then also being an actual participant in nature, instead of I'm here because I'm trying to make something happen. It's almost like actually stopping to smell the roses. Yeah. Instead of cutting them up so you can put them in a, thing so you can take them to the market.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we do. And then of course, you have these seasonal things. I know that if you look in a lot of ancient and indigenous cultures, I mean, of course, they probably didn't use terms like September back then, but if you look at September is where all your harvest festivals are. Mm-hmm. It's you're looking back at what's happened since March and you're saying, wow, look what we did.
Yes.
And you're harvesting in everything. That's when the grapes come. That's when the figs come. That's when all of these things are coming, the tomatoes, the peppers, eggplants. So if you want to share abundance, you're in the perfect time to do so. So those are things that we do too as well. And then of course we also rest during the winter time because it's fall coming right now. So you're sitting back and the weather forces us inside. And that's a spiritual concept. Mm-hmm. Not only are we just inside the house, but we're also not outside. We're also inside of ourselves, planning, thinking, recalibrating, regenerating, because we got to turn around and do it again in March.
Yeah, the energy rise again.
Energy rise again.
So I have one more question for you.
Sure. Sure.
What are you dreaming of for the future, and what does a joyful, land-rooted future look like to you?
Okay. It looks like a place where children play. Land first.
Land. Yes.
Children playing, elders teaching. It also looks where communities are making decisions, right? Yeah. And they're reclaiming the power that they already have and usually give away. It also has to do with returning back to a gift barter economy.
Please.
Yes, it's returning back to that, because if we're all producing something of value, then we can share with each other, yeah. Right? But first you got to get back to that, because we're not necessarily used to, we don't grow up to be like, hey, I'm gonna grow up and be a producer of something of value so I can trade it and all those different types of things. And then also it's, a lot of times when we talk about, I mean, right now, if you look on the news, there's all these different things that are going on. Understanding that when something's about to die, it starts to, get really, really intense, because it's on its way out, right? And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But when it happens and Babylon falls, if we're not able to take care of ourselves, we're going down with the ship. Yeah. So not waiting for it to happen to start getting ready for things. I think every culture has a Noah's Ark story, right? Yeah. Some people built a boat, packed up because there was a flood coming. Yeah. We're there right now.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Chanowk. And I love your vision of seeing the land and youth and elders coming together. It makes me think a lot about Robin Kimmer, I believe, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. Mm-hmm. And the phrase that always sticks in my mind is all flourishing is mutual.
Yes.
And I really appreciate this conversation today because I think the news is especially heavy in the larger context of everything that's happening, whether it's within these colonial borders of the United States or beyond. We see the rise of authoritarianism.
Sure.
And it can be really scary. And I really appreciate this conversation because it's really been a source of joy for me today.
Yeah.
I was in a dark place before coming here, so thank you for that.
That's the best place to come. When COVID was going on, I'm sure that made a lot of people go back to the land and start growing food and things like that. We've always told people that if you're having a hard time, the best place to be is in a garden, because just being in nature, your blood pressure goes down.
That's right.
Your heart rate goes down. You immediately start to remember who you are. You hear birds, you hear these things. So anyways, I didn't want to take over from you, but
No,
it's very important that we understand that we have to cultivate natural spaces because that's what they're for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just remembering that everything is talking, like even the birds right now are saying something to us, right? And even the bees as they go around us, everything is in motion. So
absolutely. And you know, it's one of those things of imagine being able to understand what they're saying. Like, you know, they're just chilling right now.
Yeah.
But if there was a danger around, like one of the babies fell and something was coming around, you'd be able to tell that.
Yeah, totally. I can hear when they're sounding the alarm when the cats are walking by.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chanowk, for sharing your vision and your presence. And folks didn't see Judith on camera, but she's here on the side. That's why I keep looking over here. And thank you to everyone who joined us live today. And for folks that are watching the recording, please feel free to drop in a word or an emoji about how you're feeling after this conversation. And alternate to you, I already shared how I feel from this conversation. How do you feel, Chanowk?
Well, if I could leave you with one image, it could be this right here. And you maybe you can see it if I put in, but this is an eggplant. And within this eggplant, those little brown things are bunches of seeds. Now, this is only one eggplant. Now, a typical eggplant plant will put out maybe 20 or 30 of these. So one seed, 20 or 30 of these with 150, 200, 300, 400 seeds in each fruit.
Yeah.
So that means we have to learn how to do math over again. Right? So instead of 1 + 1 = 2, you have one seed plus one seed, which equals a plant, which then is enough food to feed a whole community.
Yeah.
So I want to leave you with that. And then also it holds memory. You know, seeds hold memory, they're medicine. They don't ask for permission to grow. They just wait for the right conditions. And so rematriation is the soil. Reciprocity is the water, and joy is the sunlight.
Yes.
And so here we are.
Thank you so much, Chanowk. And if you want to learn more about Yisrael Family Farms, check out the links in the chat. And please do join us next month, November 18th, for a conversation with Naima the Dreamer on our topic, Rhythms of Resistance. Well, we will explore the role of art, ritual, performance in collective healing and imagination. And until then, please remember, joy is a strategy, so carry it forward. Bye, everyone.
Peace.